Everyone, welcome. Everyone who's seated, I'll have a seat here as well. My name is Edward P. Joseph with the Johns Hopkins SAIS Foreign Policy Institute. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all and to welcome our honored guest here, former Prime Minister and still Member of Parliament, Avdullah Hoti. He's here with Dritan Salmanaj, who is also a member of Parliament and also was former Deputy Prime Minister and also Chair of the Committee on Finance in the Parliament of the Republic of Kosovo. And they're joined by Kosovo's ambassador here to the United States, Ilhan Dugoli. We welcome you all. We welcome you. Thank you so much. Let me just say a few words of introduction, and then seated here, former Prime Minister Hoti will speak to everyone and make a few opening remarks, and then we'll continue. Is that okay? And let me just say, by way of introduction and also welcoming our online audience, we have here, both here and of course in Europe, in the Balkans, and I welcome all of you as well. So it's really a pleasure to have you here. If I can, Avdullah, if I can say, we saw each other. Thank you. We saw each other in Pristina last month. This is after quite some tumultuous events in Kosovo. Many of you know about in the north of Kosovo on the 24th of September in Banjska. And we had a very good meeting in your office, another meeting. And I always appreciate seeing you, Avdullah, for your very clear and precise understanding and grasp and willing to speak plainly about the serious issues that still remain in Republic of Kosovo and its relationship with Republic of Serbia in particular. We'll focus on that among other issues. And here, as we're at SAIS, I want to underscore this, that Member of Parliament Hoti is also Professor Hoti, a professor of economics at the University of Pristina, where he teaches the courses that we know about here at SAIS: macroeconomics, labor and migration economics. And he has served as member of several professional academic councils and published a number of research papers in this field. And I want to emphasize, you translated a book by probably the most prominent American economist ever, the Nobel Prize winning Paul Samuelson. Is that right?
Yeah.
We translated. What was the book?
Economics.
Economics. His famous text that so many of us had. So Professor Hoti translated that book. You can imagine his capacity in the field. He has had a long political career. Since 2006, he's served in various government positions at local and central level in Kosovo, including Deputy Mayor of Pristina, Minister of Finance, First Deputy Prime Minister, and of course as Prime Minister. He's been elected Parliament of the Republic of Kosovo in each election since 2014. And he's now Member of Parliament from what we know as the LDK party, center-right party. And so we welcome you, Avdullah, and please, I would like to give you the floor, please. Thank you so much. As you can stand up and wherever you're more comfortable. All right. Yeah. There will be an exam afterwards. So
I can see that. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. It's a great honor being here with you, with my colleagues, Salmanaj and Ambassador Dugoli, and my friend from Pristina here. Thank you, Edward. Thank you very much for.
Can you hear? Okay.
Not really.
No.
No, not
Do you
really.
want to stand?
Yeah.
I got to the beginning, and then we'll. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor being here today. This auditorium of professors and students, I suppose, of Johns Hopkins University. And thank you very much, Edward, for inviting me to speak today. I'll try to be, as always, and Edward knows, I'll try to be straightforward in addressing the issues that we agree to discuss. Today, the dialogue issue between Kosovo and Serbia, and of course, other related developments in Kosovo and in the region related to the dialogue process, because we cannot see this process as isolated from other developments in the region and beyond, and isolated from other spheres as well. I suppose your presence here shows your interest in this topic, and I also suppose that you do have some background information on the developments of our Serbia. So I'll be very brief in showing you the context of the dialogue process as such, and then going into some specific details that I suppose Edward is going to open a discussion on those specific as well. Following the protectorate of 1999 until 2008, we declared our independence as a country. Of course, Serbia did not agree to that. We had a supervised independence between 2008 and 2012. After the independence, Serbia sent the issue to the International Court of Justice, which decided that in 2010, the declaration of independence of Kosovo was not in violation of the international laws.
Or UN Security Council 1244.
Indeed, yeah. And right after that court decision, the dialogue process started. And it was European Union that was mandated to mediate the dialogue process between Kosovo and Serbia. So the dialogue started in 2011. Until now, I would actually organize the dialogue or discussion of the dialogue process into three different phases. The initial phase, I would call that as addressing the actually tensions in the field in the north. Back in 2011 until 2013, the dialogue process actually was focused on addressing the different problems in the north. At that time, even a police officer was actually killed in the north. So it was a dialogue just to deal with problems in the field. And then that kind of dialogue led to the agreement of the 2013. That was an agreement to normalize relations between the two countries. So starting from 2013 with the first general agreement of normalization between the two countries until 2017, actually, we reached more than 30 agreements between Kosovo and Serbia. Most of those agreements were not implemented. Those that were implemented actually improved the life of citizens in the north and improved the relation between the two countries, such as free movements of people, free movement of goods and services between the two countries, recognizing diplomas between the two countries, trying to normalize relations in transport issues and electricity and some other. Then in 2018, Kosovo imposed a tariff, 100% tariff on goods coming from Serbia to Kosovo. And therefore the dialogue process was blocked in 2018. The dialogue process started again in 2020 when I became Prime Minister. And then we agreed with our partners, international partners, to start the dialogue process to reach a final agreement of mutual recognition and normalization between the two countries. So we agreed that time, so let's leave everything aside and let's pause for a moment and let's concentrate on the final agreement of mutual recognition between the countries, because everybody was convinced that the only way to reach a peaceful coexistence of Kosovo and Serbia was a final agreement of mutual recognition between the two countries. We even agreed on the content of the final agreement, starting from mutual recognition and then addressing the issue of missing persons and economic cooperation between the two countries, state debts, a number of things, even addressing previous agreements that were reached in the dialogue process. And then with the current government that started its mandate in March 2021, the principles based on which the current government started the dialogue process, where in principle we could support that approach on the dialogue process. But we have seen some lack of coordination between Kosovo and international partners. So we actually came to a situation whereby tensions were reoccurred in the north again. And what is happening now is that actually what we are doing is now trying to address tensions that are happening in the north. So you can see that we are now in a way in the initial phases of the late by the end of September this year, a terrorist attack happened in the north. A Kosovo police officer was killed, so it created a different situation. Not only in Kosovo, but in the region as well. So these are my key messages. We cannot see the dialogue process between Kosovo and Serbia as an isolated event between these two countries, because there are a number of developments in the region that are affecting the dialogue process. And the political dynamics in both countries and in the region as well are affecting the situation as well. I do hope now that given the developments, not only in the region, but beyond the region, the war between Russia and Ukraine and some other conflicts recently in other parts of the world, and then the fragile situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we know for sure that we actually need some kind of constitutional rearrangement in order to make this country functional. And we have the blockade in North Macedonia when it comes to constitutional changes that are needed to make progress towards EU integration of North Macedonia and the whole region. And then Montenegro having now a government which has to prove itself that it's a pro-European, pro-NATO government. We hope to see some progress in all these because as LDK, we're now in a position, but regardless of that, this is a process of national importance, and we are all one in this process. We fully support our institutions, our government, in moving forward in the dialogue process, but a dialogue process that actually leads to mutual recognition between the two countries. Because as I said before, we can address specific issues in the field, such as transport or electricity or free movement of people or car plates for that matter. But without a final agreement of mutual recognition between the countries, it's difficult to believe that we will close the chapter once and for all between Kosovo and Serbia. What we have seen recently, we have seen an increasing number of KFOR troops in the north, in Kosovo in general, and in the north in particular. We have also seen some Serbian army getting closer to the Kosovo border. Personally, I firmly believe that there is no way someone could start the conflict. So I tend to believe that there is enough attention of international community, of the EU and US, to maintain peace and security. But that's not enough for the long-term peace. So what we need is to make sure that we fully support a dialogue process that is centered on mutual recognition between the two countries. It's very unfortunate that we have to deal with tensions in the north. Well, when certain situations arise in the north, of course, we have to address those situations. But I'm urging all parties, all partners that I need to fully support us on concentrating on this final agreement of mutual recognition between the two. And because I firmly believe that this is the only way to achieve long-term peace between the two countries. Now, I want to briefly address the Washington Agreement of September 2020.
For those of you who don't know, permit me just to say it as a break here. that it was former Prime Minister Hoti who signed the Washington Agreement, which was a sort of two parallel agreements. He signed it just down the street in the White House, in the Oval Office, on one side, and President Vucic of Serbia on the other side, signing his parallel document of commitments. So please.
Well, as I said before, when we started the dialogue process for the final agreement of mutual recognition and normalization between the two countries in June 2020, with a general consensus of all international partners supporting Kosovo and Serbia, we came to Washington to reach an economic agreement, an agreement of economic cooperation between the two countries, believing that this agreement actually would create the necessary context for the final agreement of mutual recognition. And that economic cooperation agreement included large-scale infrastructure projects aiming to increase the interdependency of the two economies, assuming that once the two countries work together in economic terms, it's easier to go to the final agreement of mutual recognition. Unfortunately, that agreement was not actually fully supported by both countries after the government changes that took place in Kosovo. So we are in a situation of, as Edward called it, in a crossroad regarding the dialogue process between the two countries. I hope to see the necessary consensus among all international partners, not only on maintaining peace and security in the region, but addressing the rules cause of all tensions in the region, which is the lack of the final agreement of mutual recognition. I'll stop here, with your permission, and then we can continue.
Thank you. So please, and that thank you for that. Again, as you said, you're plain spoken, and that was very clear to everyone. And where you closed, Avdullah, I think is exactly where I would like to begin. That this standoff between Serbia and Kosovo is the root cause. This is, in my view, this is what I've written here along with colleagues here at SAIS. This is the root cause. This was also the initial issue upon which former Yugoslavia began to collapse. And it was a decision by Belgrade to remove autonomy that Kosovo had enjoyed in former Yugoslavia. And this was the first and initial step in the tragic destruction and violent destruction of former Yugoslavia, and remains this, as you said, this root cause issue. You mentioned and we've called this the dialogue, but in fact, your vision that there should be a final agreement is now being taken by the US and EU for some kind of interim agreement. So we have what was called the dialogue and began, as you said, a decade ago in 2013, is now really shouldn't be called a dialogue anymore. It should be called the implementation of an agreement, because according to US and EU, there's now an agreement that was initially made in Brussels in February, and then with some more detail, but not full detail in March in Ohrid. And then now we had just last month, the 5 key Western powers, the US, UK, France, Germany, and Italy, all 5 presenting a further detail. And so that's where this stands now. This is this crossroads that we're talking about. And so there's this concept that is really not for full recognition, but some kind of what they're calling de facto recognition. So acceptance of documents, and Serbia is supposed to not object to Kosovo's membership in international organizations. And we'll talk about Serbia in a second. But Are you saying that this concept of an interim step where it's not full recognition, that it's this de facto recognition, are you saying that this is an approach that will work, or do you believe that this could work, that this approach, and we'll come to the association and things like this in a moment? But I want to understand you conceptually. Do you believe this concept, this so-called French-German approach that the EU and US have taken on, do you believe in this conceptually, that this is a viable approach?
Well, let me answer you this way. Are we better off with or without this agreement? Of course, we are better off with this agreement. Will this agreement solve the issue between the two countries? No way. It will, as I said before, it will address some current issues, some tensions. It would solve some problems in communication between the two countries. It might help to reintegrate the Serbian community into our institution, but will it solve the problem between the two countries? I firmly believe it will not. As I said before, the only way to solve the issue between the two countries is to have a final agreement, legally binding agreement between the two countries of mutual recognition and normalization between the two countries. I'm not happy at all to see international partners not pushing the two countries toward the final agreement of mutual recognition, but actually forcing two countries to enter into an, I would say, interim agreement, because this is an interim agreement. It addresses some important issues. It builds a new momentum for the final agreement. But are we sure that we will not see tensions in the north because we have now this agreement? I'm sure it will not. Because as long as we don't have the final agreement of mutual recognition, Serbia will continue to misuse the Serbian community in Kosovo for political purposes, as it used to do in the last decade or so now. We made some progress based on the 2013 agreement. We organized local elections based on the Kosovan laws and constitution. And all Serbian community was fully involved in our institutions for many, many years, until early this year, when they decided to leave Kosovo institutions. Out of 38 municipalities in Kosovo, 10 municipalities are with Serb majority population. So we have 10 out of 38 mayors across the country. Some 7 or 8% of the police force are from Serbian community. There is a branch of the appeal court in the north as well. There were some members of the Kosovo security force from the Serbian community. And Serbia made pressure toward the Serbian community in Kosovo to leave all Kosovo institutions. So we are now in a very complex situation, trying to work very closely with the Serbian community to actually to convince them to get into our institution, to organize elections in the north, in 4 municipalities in the north. So to answer your question, of course, we support this agreement. From my experience, I firmly believe that it will not solve the situation. I'm not sure even if it actually would put an end to the tensions in the north. As long as we don't have a final agreement of mutual recognition, Serbia will continue to use the Serbian community in Kosovo to create tensions.
I understand it. Thank you for that answer. So it's not, you say you support this interim approach, and you're right, it is an interim step, and yet you see that it can be problematic. in a moment we'll come to the relationship of your government in Pristina with the Kosovo Serb community and how it came that Kosovo Serbs walked out of institutions last year. That was 1 year ago. It was November last year when this happened. And then this has come to several of these tensions rising and even ultimately a fatal confrontation. And other dramatic event, kidnapping of Kosovo police in June. We had the attacks on KFOR. And also, you know, from Kosovo Serb perspective, they are feeling that of pressure from Kosovo government. This is their perception. I was in the north last month as well, speaking to them. So they have their perception. But I have to come because it's always there. If we speak about this approach of the US and EU, this, as you call it, interim approach, this Brussels offered it, now you have this quint details. It's all centered on this constant term that we hear, the association or community of Serb majority municipalities, the 10 that you mentioned. So this has been the thing. It's been talked about. You have Derek Chollet and Gabriel Escobar. They write an op-ed in Coadjutore. They say, you know, you don't need to worry. This is what we mean by the association. Kosovo should not worry. It will not be Republika Srpska like in Bosnia. So what should Kosovo do? They presented this last month, I believe the 26th of October. There was the big meeting in Brussels. Prime Minister Kurti and President Vucic separately meeting with the high EU officials, plus President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, and Prime Minister Meloni of Italy. All were there. Only US and UK are not there because neither is a member of the EU, but they're a part of this. And there's apparently this more detailed approach. So the focus is still on Kosovo. Do this association. Should Prime Minister Kurti accept this approach? As I understand it, he said in principle it's okay, but he wants Serbia to sign. Is Prime Minister Kurti's approach what you support?
Well, this is how I see it. We refer to this as a dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia. But from our perspective, it's a dialogue between Kosovo and our international partners that help us declare our independence and helped us to consolidate our country in the international arena. So what I'm trying to say is that we have constantly dialogued and talked together and agreed and followed the advice of our international partners. Well, to what extent we have been able to follow their advices recently in the last 2 or 3 years now, I'm not quite sure that we managed as a country to work very closely with our international. We know that that's the establishment of the association is our obligation towards Serbian community living in Kosovo and toward our international partners. I think we lost too much precious time during these years, not being able to move forward in closing the dialogue process. Unfortunately, this process has been used for internal political purposes in both countries, to be honest, in Serbia and in Kosovo. And maybe this might be one of the reasons that we haven't been able to make enough progress when it comes to implementing previous agreements, in particular the Association of Serb majority municipalities. There is an agreement in place that has been signed back in 2013, and another agreement of principles for the establishment of association of 2015. We have a decision of our constitutional court as how this association should be established, how we should make sure that this association is established within our constitution. So in these terms, we have no problems of establishing this association. I'll give you my personal opinion. I have worked in local administration as well for many, many years, and in central government as well. Will this association increase or reshape the rights of the Serbian community in Kosovo? I'm sure it will not. We are very proud as a country of providing the best rights to all minority, non-majority communities, not only Serb community, but other communities as well. Applying the highest international standards for rights of non-majority communities. But now we have this agreement of the association. We have to implement it. And no one is against that. And we have received some assurances from our international partners, because as I said before, our dialogue is primarily with international partners, and then with Serbia. We have some assurances, clear assurances, that this association will be in line with our constitution. And I could say that there is a general consensus in Kosovo among political forces that now this is an obligation that should be respected, of course, always in line with our constitution. It's difficult now to comment why we haven't implemented this agreement so far. I tried to explain before. When I was Prime Minister, we agreed to include all previous agreements into the final agreement of mutual recognition, based on the principles that once we finalize the agreement of mutual recognition, of course we will respect, and we will have international guarantees that we will respect all previous agreements. Now we are in a difficult situation. Now there are early elections taking place in Serbia. It seems that until early next year or February, March next year, we won't have a government in Belgrade to sit together with them and work with them toward finalizing the Ohrid and Brussels agreement.
I understand. And now, again, we'll come in a minute to relationship between the government of Kosovo and its Kosovo Serb citizens, who are citizens. But I want to flag that, but this is a good time to turn to your neighbor, Serbia. So we've talked about the association, and you've acknowledged this is an obligation. And you suggest that there's actually consensus about this, about implementing this. Again, I note Prime Minister Kurti's position, as I understand it, is this latest proposal is acceptable by the Quintus detail, but he asks that Serbia sign all three, the Brussels, Ohrid, and this one, and put his signature. And if I could say, it's not unreasonable request, because we saw President Vucic's reaction immediately after Ohrid there, where he even made a joke about not being able to sign, and then immediately was walking back, as we say, obligations that were there, that the US and the EU said he accepted. And as you mentioned, they're in election campaign period, and he and other senior members are constantly repeating, I mean, just the other day, never recognize Kosovo. We do not recognize Kosovo. We have no intention of recognizing Kosovo. So what about the Serbian side here? Do you see a vision that if you implement this and establish this association, as you said, it won't solve all issues, but will it lead to this dynamic with the international community and others that incline Serbia to do its part? Or, let me suggest, will Serbia just say, okay, that was fine, but that's not enough for us. We want even more.
I see your point, and we have discussed this when you were in Pristina. I'll repeat it here as well. I wouldn't worry too much what Serbia thinks and actually does. What I would worry is how to coordinate and ensure full support of our actions by our international partners. So this is what I think is important. So the steps that we take and the actions that we take in our strategy toward the dialogue process should be primarily coordinated with our international partners, rather than what Serbia is doing and behaving. We need to maintain peace and security in the region. We are not able to do it alone without the support of international partners. We need to ensure the recognition of 5 EU countries that did not recognize Kosovo until now. We need the recognition of 4 NATO members to move forward with the NATO membership of Kosovo. We need to get membership in a number of international organizations. We are sure that the way toward these achievements and consolidation of our statehood into the international arena does not go through Belgrade. It goes through Berlin, through London, through Paris, and of course through Washington. It is affected how Serbia behaves, of course. We cannot rule that out. It is part of the equation. But from our perspective, from Pristina, I think the most important thing is to coordinate our actions with our international partners.
I understand that and appreciate that. I'm so glad you mentioned the 4 NATO non-recognizers, because of course 4 is a easier number than 5 by definition. Getting 4 countries to recognize is automatically easier than 5, and especially that 5th one Cyprus is not exactly an easy one. And you may know we did our report here in January 2022 at SAIS with Wilson Center called From Crisis to Convergence, where a detailed report which explained why the whole solution, not just to this standoff, but for the region, are those 4 non-recognizers, and they are Greece, Romania, Slovakia, and Spain. Now, the challenge, I won't take time here, but in our view, this their recognition completely changes dynamics for Serbia, and it makes it unsustainable, the current Serbian position towards Kosovo and towards the West, in our view. It removes this charade of President Vucic of, I'm balanced, which is false. It's a pro-Russian orientation, and in our view, this recognition would change dynamic, because Serbia, Russia, China, it wouldn't matter. Kosovo would have its pathway independently to NATO. The problem is you don't have that, and until you have that independent pathway, then Belgrade's position is relevant. So I'm coming back to this question. Even if you implement the association tomorrow, and to the fullest extent tomorrow, the Parliament passes it and establish it, does Kosovo have a pathway to NATO or let alone the EU? And if not, what is the approach? The approach is, okay, we are cooperative and that will change dynamics towards Belgrade. What is the vision there? As long as these four countries do not recognize Kosovo.
Edward,
I know it's hard.
it's very complex. It's a very complex situation, but as we have discussed between us a number of times,
Yes.
Kosovo is an independent country. It's going to be an independent country forever. There is no question about that. We need full support of our international community for to consolidate our statehood into international arena. The implementation of previous agreements that we reached in the dialogue process. I firmly believe that they are for the benefits of Kosovo, of the Serbian community in Kosovo, and other communities as well. Those technical agreements for many years that were reached between 2013 and 2017, they improve the lives of citizens in from all communities. So our obligation to implement those agreements should not be related as how Serbia behaves. We need to strengthen our democracy in the country. We need to ensure full integration of all communities in our social, economic, and political life of the country. We need to show that we deserve our place into the international arena, international institutions. For the time being, it's difficult to imagine that Serbia will move forward recognizing the independence of Kosovo. But here we are, there is nothing we can do. What we should do, what we should make sure that we do is that we strengthen our democracy, our institutions, we work closely with our international allies, international partners. First of all, maintaining peace and security in the country and promoting economic development and promoting of democracy inside the country and wait for a better moment. I firmly believe that if the region as such moves forward in EU integration, it's easier for the final agreement of mutual recognition between Kosovo and Serbia. If EU moves forward regarding the EU integration process of Albania and North Macedonia, and now EU integration process of Montenegro as well, and we find some kind of a solution to ensure that Bosnia and Herzegovina is a functioning country, it's easier than for the final agreement between Kosovo and Serbia.
Understand. So they're mutually connected.
We cannot, wait until Serbia is willing to move forward. We have to move forward in promoting economic development, democracy, EU integration of the whole region. We know that for us it's difficult to make concrete progress toward EU integration, but we have the stabilization and association agreement of 2016 based on some special relationship between the EU and Kosovo. I firmly believe that we should find some special arrangement for NATO membership as well. Once we close the security problem in the region, when Kosovo becomes member of NATO, then it's easier to move toward the final agreement of mutual recognition.
That's I don't know some of you how close you follow, but this is actually a quite remarkable vision that now Member of Parliament Hoti is offering, a very constructive and collaborative vision, despite obstacles that are very clear that you understand very clearly. Let me come to democracy. You said we should, in addition to consolidating our statehood, demonstrate and consolidate and build our democracy in Kosovo. And I point out, you come here, you personify Kosovo democracy. You're a member of the opposition. You're a former prime minister. You're here coming and here speaking and having meetings and offering views that are different in some respects from your government. Let me then ask you, as a member of the opposition, do you believe Prime Minister Kurti is building Kosovo's democracy? Is he building and fulfilling Kosovo's obligations towards its Kosovo Serb citizens, its own citizens who are Serb? Is he doing that? What's your opinion?
I'll try to give my opinion, not only as an opposition, as an MP coming from an opposition party, but from a person representing Kosovo. I firmly believe that although we are a young country, we declared our independence in 2008, we managed to establish institutions and build a whole framework of institutions and laws and other issues that actually would ensure that the democratic system and the democracy as such cannot be affected by any government or any politician or any political party. Let me give you an example. In the last 3 years, as an opposition, we sent actually 7 or 8 laws that were approved by the government to the Constitutional Court. And the Constitutional Court, as far as I can remember, 4 or 5 cases that ruled against those laws that were approved by the majority in the parliament. I think this shows that in Kosovo, democracy is very, very strong. Also, it's a young country. But I'm trying to say that there is no one, even the prime minister, that could actually challenge democracy. No one is trying to challenge democracy in Kosovo. Well, it depends to what extent the current government advanced the democratic institutions. It's an open issue. It's an open issue. Year after year, we have seen the country report issued by the European Commission assessing our country in each and every respect. We managed to make progress in various fields, such as in strengthening open market economy or strengthening law and order institutions. But it seems that until we close this issue with Serbia, it's the overall progress of the country is in a way is dependent on that.
I understand. I'm just ask one more question, and then I have several others, but I want to give an opportunity. But before you leave, you have an important meeting with a U.S. government official, and so I know we have to get you out relatively on time. So be thinking of your questions there. But is there? I mentioned at the beginning you're an economist, and you mentioned the Washington Agreement. Do you see? And there was recently just the Berlin process meeting in Tirana. You saw that, and obviously there are other initiatives that the U.S. promotes that are in some ways competing or alternatives to the Berlin process. Are you still a believer in what you said was the vision of Washington Agreement? Do you believe that there is opportunity for more economic exchange and trade and reduction of barriers, and that can promote improve people's livelihoods and improve relationships in the region? Are you a believer in that? And if so, do you prefer Berlin process, or do you prefer open Balkans, or do you see that there's an opportunity to combine those?
I'm a firm believer of the Berlin process. There is no question about that. There is no substitute to the Berlin process as such. For those who know this process, it prepares the countries in the region for the EU integration. Well, when the war between Russia and Ukraine started early last year, the overall dynamics in the region changed as well. You know better than me how hard Russia tries to influence the region, Serbia in particular, and then through Serbia and North Macedonia, in Montenegro, and in Serbia through Serbian community as well. Why I am mentioning this? I believe this is increasing the risk premium over our economy in Kosovo and in other countries as well. We have performed quite well in economic terms in the last couple of years, but now this risk premium that comes from political developments in the region and beyond is causing, in Kosovo in particular, but in other countries as well, large scale of migration. So from an economic perspective, as an economist, I'm quite afraid that if we do not address and close the issue with Serbia to remove this risk premium over the whole region, we might be facing in the coming years some kind of demographic and economic collapse. In the last 2 years in Kosovo, we lost 12% of the labor force. They moved abroad. And we have always faced the brain drain issue. But in the last couple of years, because of developments in the region and beyond, because of this risk premium all over the region, the best educated professionals are moving abroad. And of course, it is affecting our economic performance. So that's why it's very urgent to create the necessary momentum for Kosovo to move ahead. If Serbia is not willing to cooperate and work together to reach that agreement, we should coordinate our action with our international partners to move ahead with NATO membership and EU membership. At the end of the day, with some special status, there is no other way.
I understand. And my takeaway already, my quote here is, we cannot wait for Serbia. This is my takeaway quote. Let me quickly, this last very specific question, and then we'll open it up for questions. As it stands right now, you said that what's so important is Kosovo's relationship with its international partners. Right now, the government of Kosovo is under a form of sanctions from, they call measures, that were put in place in June. This was after the government of Kosovo moved to install the 4 mayors in the north, forcibly to put them physically into the offices in the north. And this was against the wishes of Kosovo's international partners, including the United States. And then we know the 29th of May, there was this violent protest where Serb protesters were violently attacking Kosovo, even in an obviously premeditated way, with even shooting and throwing Molotov cocktails, and in one case severely, in several cases, severely injuring some of these KFOR troops. One Hungarian lost his leg in this. It could easily have been fatalities. So this is quite serious, and yet the result was the measures went on Kosovo. And there was all of this fury of Prime Minister Kurti for having taken this step there that was clearly uncoordinated. And then we come into September, and there was then this startling, you call terrorist attack, as Mr. Burrell even used that term and said it was aggression initially. And on the 24th, that resulted in the killing of from Vucic, the Kosovo police officer, and then in the shootout, 3 Serbs of these assailants. That was the word Ambassador Hovenier used to describe the Serbs, assailants, the attackers. 3 were killed. So, is this correct there that these 2 startling developments have happened? Kosovo remains the country that has the measures on it. In Serbia, there are no measures still. Apparently, some investigations are either continuing or having finished. And the only thing that we've seen is that Alexander Vucic has resigned as the head of the Serbian intelligence agency. But other than that, no measures. So is that appropriate, an appropriate stance where this, after we look at dramatic developments in May and dramatic developments in September?
Well, it's not appropriate at all to have measures against Kosovo. I'm not going to talk for technical details as how these measures and why they were actually imposed on Kosovo. But I can say is that we need Serbia to cooperate unconditionally to provide full information as how the attack on September 24th happened in the north of Kosovo. And second, from our side, we need to organize elections in the 4 municipalities in the north unconditionally, without accepting any kind of condition from the Serbian community whether they will participate in those elections or not.
No petition, no signatures.
No need for that. I think it only complicates the situation. We know for sure that for the time being, we are only filling a vacuum of authorities in the north. The situation cannot continue like that in the north. We cannot, and we should not, as a country, as a society, as a multi-ethnic society, have mayors in the north with 2 or 3% of votes that they received in the last election because the Serbian community living in the north did not participate in those elections. So we need to organize elections in the north as soon as possible without any prior condition by anyone. We need to have Serbian community living in Kosovo as soon as possible to be part of the Kosovo institution unconditionally. They are influenced. They are fully under the directives of Serbia. That's why we need the support of international community towards Serbia to let the Serbian community to be part of Kosovo institution. I think we have shown the necessary, as political parties and Kosovo institution, we have shown the necessary willingness and support for the Serbian community to be part of the institutions.
And so they should return. Kosovo Serbs should return
Unconditionally.
Yes. Yes. Here I just jump in and say that on my own visit to the north last month, speaking to Kosovo Serbs there, just 2 things. One is, of course, there's at least those who I spoke to, that they have a strong impression that the government, the current government under Prime Minister Kurti, has been hostile to their interests. And they say that is the reason why 1 year ago they walked out, and you know the particulars about license plates and things like that. but their impression is that there's been a hostility. At the same time, I give something encouraging that I heard from Kosovo-Serbia, is the ones I spoke to, is that they respect the Kosovo police. Even though Kosovo Serbs have walked out, the regular Kosovo police, they have a lot of concerns about the special police, the special units and their use in the north. There's a lot of concern, tremendous concern about that. But I was encouraged, I really was encouraged that they have confidence still in Kosovo police, despite Kosovo Serbs having walked out of that. Now, are there any questions here from our members of our audience, or please?
So I have a question regarding, you mentioned, Mr. Hoti, that it is Kosovo's obligation to establish or help establish.
Sir, could you say your name, please?
Yeah, Almis Sahik.
Are you from SAIS?
Yes,
Oh, okay, you're SAIS student.
yes.
Okay, please.
So my question was regarding, you're mentioning that it's Kosovo's responsibility to help establish the association of Serbs in the northern part of Kosovo. How does Kosovo go about, because the Serbian community is not even the largest minority group in Kosovo. So how does Kosovo do that successfully without maybe upsetting other minorities that are maybe larger and statistic wise, and also not put themselves in the position that Bosnia and Herzegovina has done by allowing Republika Srpska?
In Kosovo, we have a very different situation compared to Bosnia and Herzegovina. 92% of the population is Albanian. Some 4 or 5% are Serbs, and the rest are other communities like Bosnians, Roma, Turks, Ashkali, and other communities. So moving ahead of with the association, Mr. Pallis, it cannot be seen as upsetting other communities living in Kosovo. All other communities are fully integrated into the society. They have reserved seats in parliament. We have 120 members of parliament. 20 seats are for non-majority population, 10 for Serbs and 10 for other non-Serb communities. They have reserved places in other institutions as well. At least 2 ministers from communities in our government should come from communities. So they are fully represented based on the constitution, actually. So there is some, in a way, some actually very, very positive discrimination toward the representation of communities.
Reminder that the Kosovo Constitution was drafted by, under the leadership of the former Finnish president, Martti Ahtisaari, who won Nobel Prize. So it was drafted by internationals with extensive protections in mind. That was the original Constitution, of course. Please, and then I know Mr. Hoti will have to leave shortly. Please.
Oh, sorry. Name is
Your
David.
name, sir?
Name is David Onspach, I'm retired, not affiliated with James SAIS. A question I love World Expo, so I go to them a lot now. Expo 27 is going to be slated for Belgrade, Serbia. So I guess my question is, has there been any, I don't know, feeling of reconciliation on the part, with Kosovo exhibiting there in Belgrade, and any kind of rapprochement with Serbia regarding that? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. Is that a way for peace in the area to somehow get involved with Expo 27?
It's actually an interesting question. And as I understand it, Kosovo is a member country of the body that decides about the. Am I correct on that? The Paris-based Expo body that actually Kosovo is a member of that organization.
I hope by 27 we will reach the final agreement and be in Belgrade for that event. even now we have a liaison office in Belgrade. So every day we are moving closer to living together and working together. As I said before, what we are missing is this final agreement of mutual recognition to remove all risk premiums, not only in Kosovo but in the region as well.
If I can add, for Serbia as well. Serbia itself, of course,
Yeah.
is dramatically held back by the lack of this agreement. One last question, and then I know I'm getting the signal here that we need to get you out in time. So just briefly.
Welcome,
You-
Mr. Former Prime Minister. Hi, my name is Anya. I am a student here in international relations. I was born in Albania. I've been in the US for over 25 years. I am pleased to have this conversation with you, and congratulations and happy November 28th, the great Independence Day. May our heroes of our nation, Ismail, Laura, and Isa Bulletini, be unforgettable. And I have a few questions. In terms of economics, what are your thoughts in regards to the agreement signed at the White House under the Trump presidency? And was it in line with the Berlin process? And how did it differ from Open Balkans? And then for the final agreement, what further support is needed from the international community for the legally binding agreement for peace that you're not currently seeing? And then I have a question from a friend of mine, Nora. She's from Kosovo. She wants to know in regards to Zelensky's warning of Russia plans to interfere in the Balkans, and to ask about Edi Rama sending out association plans to the EU without consulting Kurti. Thank you.
Choose.
Well, I'll try to answer very briefly. The Washington agreement was not meant to substitute the Berlin process or any other process. It was meant to actually encourage the two countries to work together into large-scale infrastructure projects to connect the two economies, to make the two economies more dependent on each other, making Kosovo a kind of hub in the whole region, and then based on that platform to move toward the final agreement. What was the second one?
Zelensky and
Okay. For Zelensky's warning of Russia plans to interfere in the Balkans, and then Rama sending out the association plans to the EU without consulting.
I would not comment, with your permission, on this declaration by President Zelensky. Prime Minister Rama is playing a crucial role in the whole region, because Albania is a NATO member. There are a number of Albanian soldiers serving in KFOR in Kosovo. So they are contributing to peace and security in Kosovo. So they have a say, they should have a say in this. I think he's trying to help. There are so far a number of draft status of the status of the association. None of them is public until now, so we have to wait for that. But I firmly support and appreciate the role that the Prime Minister is playing.
Abdullah, thank you so much. I build this as an opportunity for all of us here at SAIS to get a truly enlightened view on where things actually stand between Kosovo and its relations with its neighbor Serbia, and Member of Parliament Hoti, former Prime Minister Hoti, you have delivered that. So if you could all join me in thanking our honored guest today. Thank you.